Hello and welcome to Granada Reports. We are live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello on the programme this evening.
Speeding down the motorway at more than 100 miles per hour. 12 years for the reckless driver. He killed mum of two, Frankie Hoff, and her unborn daughter.
The questions about Jackie's death and her mum's determined battle through the courts to get answers she says are missing.
That's what we'd hope for. That Jackie's death wouldn't have been in vain. Sorry.
A reunion of TV royalty. Corrie's Rita and Mavis are back together and it's blooming marvellous at the RHS Tatton Show.
It's a sellout crowd here at Old Trafford for the first day of the fourth Ashes Test. I'll be live with all the action.
And I'm at Royal Liverpool Golf Club, where the world's greatest golfers have gathered for the Open Championship.
So please do stay with us. But first tonight, the family of the pregnant mum of two who was killed by a speeding driver say his prison sentence of 12 years is insulting and an injustice.
Frankie Jules Hoff had pulled onto the hard shoulder of the M66 near Barry after getting a puncture. She had her two sons and her nephew in the car when Adil Iqbal, who was filming himself speeding at 123 miles per hour, lost control of his vehicle and ploughed into hers.
Frankie and her unborn daughter died 2 days later. The boys were left in a coma.
Andrew Fletcher was in court for Iqbal's sentencing.
Weaving between traffic on the M66 at speeds of up to 123 miles an hour, Adil Iqbal has just one hand on the wheel. In his other, he holds the phone filming this footage. Moments later, the 22-year-old had lost control of his BMW, spinning onto the hard shoulder and colliding with a Skoda Fabia. The driver of that car had pulled over with a flat tyre. Frankie Jules Hoff, who was 17 weeks pregnant, was enjoying a day out with her sons and nephew. She suffered unsurvivable brain injuries in the crash. She died with her unborn daughter 36 hours later in hospital. Her 9-year-old son Tommy and her 4-year-old nephew Tobias were left in a coma. Manchester Minchell Street Crown Court heard that the boys are now out of hospital, but their outcomes remain uncertain because of the brain injuries they suffered. Adil Iqbal appeared in court for sentencing after pleading guilty to causing their serious injuries and the death of Frankie Jules Hoff by dangerous driving. Passing sentence, the judge, Maurice Green, said that Iqbal had written letters to him and to Frankie's family expressing his remorse. He also said he took into account Iqbal's guilty pleas. But he told him Frankie died as a result of the most indescribably reckless driving by you, leading to the devastation of a family. And he sentenced him to 12 years in prison. That sentence was criticised as insulting and an injustice by a solicitor for Frankie's family. She said new guidelines allowing life sentences for death by dangerous driving should have meant a longer prison term.
This case stands as one of the worst examples of dangerous driving I've witnessed in my 27-year career as a catastrophic injury lawyer. And we expected the justice system to fulfil its duty and utilise its newfound powers. It's important to emphasise that dangerous driving is not a game. It has real and devastating consequences, and we must work collectively towards creating a society that values responsible driving.
Frankie's family gave moving victim impact statements in court. The 38-year-old actress, whose credits included Hollyoaks and Heartbeat, was described by her dad as warm, caring, loving, humble and inclusive. She was, he said, my hero, and he spoke of his hope that her tragic loss will have a positive impact and deter others from reckless driving. Andrew Fletcher, ITV News, at Manchester Minchell Street Crown Court.
Well, next tonight, to the long legal fight by a mum from Blackpool to get more detailed answers about her daughter's death.
Jacqueline Maguire, known as Jackie to her family, had Down syndrome and lived in a care home. An inquest concluded she died of natural causes. Her mum says that ruling doesn't fully delve into the circumstances of her death.
Yeah, Mira Maguire tried to overturn the inquest and trigger a new one, appealing eventually to the Supreme Court, which rejected her appeal. She now plans to go to the European Court of Human Rights.
She's spoken to our correspondent, Rob Smith.
The photo of Jackie was taken here. We used to come out every morning after she had her breakfast and she'd just plonk herself down. But she was really happy that day, and it's a lovely memory of her.
A treasured spot to remember a treasured daughter. Muriel Maguire from Blackpool comes to the park to feel close to Jackie. The 52-year-old had Down syndrome and lived in a care home for more than 2 decades. She died in 2017 from pneumonia and a stomach ulcer. An inquest jury at Blackpool Town Hall concluded it was natural causes. But Muriel wanted the wider circumstances of Jackie's death considered in such a ruling, arguing she was vulnerable, deprived of her liberty. She appealed all the way to the Supreme Court, without success.
We're not letting this go. We're going to keep on fighting. Not just for Jackie anymore, but for all those who don't have the mental capacity to act in their own best interests. You know, people who have no voice in our society, who can't speak for themselves. Save them from needlessly dying. That's it now. That's what we'd hope for. That Jackie's death wouldn't have been in vain. Sorry.
The highest court in the land found no error on the part of the coroner, no breach of the care duties necessary to trigger what's called an Article 2 inquest. It's named after the right to life under European law.
The court finds that, by the time the coroner gave his direction to the jury, after the circumstances of Jackie's death had been examined in detail in the evidence at the inquest, he was entitled to conclude that there was no arguable breach of either the system's duty or the operational duty for them to consider. The court concludes that there was no legal error by the coroner in directing the inquest jury to return a standard form of verdict.
Muriel now plans to ask the European Court of Human Rights to review the Supreme Court's decision.
There is a higher authority than theirs. And all I can do now is keep on praying, because I have a great belief in prayer, and hoping that our legal team will get it right and that we will get a good result. Where there's life, there's hope.
Jackie's family expect to launch a crowdfunding campaign to pay for the rest of their legal fight, a fight for answers they believe they don't have over their loved one's death. Rob Smith, ITV News, Blackpool.
In other news today, and police have named a woman whose body was found on a street in Rochdale and say they are treating her death as suspicious. 40-year-old Kerry Newman has been described as a loving daughter and mother of 2 boys. She was found on New Barn Lane early on Monday. A man and a woman have been arrested on suspicion of murder.
The legendary poet John Cooper Clarke has been ordered the freedom of his home city of Salford. He became famous in the 70s as a punk poet and released several albums. He's been given the honour for his contribution to poetry and his commitment to the arts. Well, next, in the last few hours, a group of MPs have held a special meeting to hear about calls for a Hillsborough law.
Yes, the Human Rights Committee heard evidence from Bishop James Jones, the former Bishop of Liverpool, who chaired the independent panel into the disaster and made 25 recommendations to the government to prevent future injustice.
But just last night, the Home Secretary confirmed that there will be another delay in publishing the government's response to the Bishop's report.
Let's bring in our political correspondent, Leisha Manali. He's been watching today's hearings. Leisha, is the Hillsborough law any closer to the statute books now?
Well, on the face of it, Gamal, no. Of all the elements that make up what's become known as the Hillsborough Law, only 2 of 25 are currently making their way through Parliament. And this news of further delays has angered several North West MPs. But going on what was said in the committee hearings today, this delay could be seen as 1 step back and 2 steps forward. Now, to say that the Hillsborough families have had to show remarkable levels of patience over the years is perhaps an understatement. Quite apart from their decades-long fight to prove that their loved ones were unlawfully killed, they've since been waiting to see those systematic changes in the law recommended by the former Bishop of Liverpool, so no other families have to go through the same relentless fight for the truth. The Bishop set out 25 learnings for how things should be done differently in the event of any future public disasters, including how inquests should be run, how lawyers for victims should be paid for, and how public bodies like the police will have to behave in any investigation, basically compelling them to tell the truth. Now, the government will need to formally reply to this report to set out what changes will be made. And the burning question for many families has been, well, where is it? It's been more than 5 years since the recommendations were laid out, and the government's own deadline to publish their reply this spring has long been and gone. The Home Secretary's met some of the families to discuss progress 6 weeks ago, but has now confirmed that the publication's been delayed again, and we understand it's not likely to be published unless Parliament is sitting. Now, Westminster goes into recess tomorrow, so that really means autumn at the earliest. But while that delay will be very frustrating for many, today the Bishop told MPs he felt confident that it could actually be a good thing, meaning a more fulsome response.
After that meeting, families and others, including myself, made representations to the Home Secretary and Lord Chancellor. And as I understand from the letter that has recently gone out to the families, this is because they are seriously considering the responses that the families shared with them on that day. I do think that the delay that they're asking for is a genuine request in order that they can respond as much as possible to the points of learning.
Now, given that earlier this year that same bishop referred to any further delays as intolerable, that's a really interesting change of view. Of course, the proof will come when we finally get this report. Will it mean that public disasters like the Manchester Arena bombing could never be subject to any attempt at a cover-up? We will have to wait and see. Of course, the Hillsborough families will be waiting too, and you can bet they'll be watching very closely indeed.
OK, Alicia, thank you.
Here's what's still to come on the ITV News at 6:30 with Lucrezia.
Coming up, surprise as inflation falls unexpectedly. Prices are still rising, but at a slower rate than forecasters have predicted. We'll have the latest on what this means for our wallets and interest rates. The Prime Minister apologises for the horrific historical treatment of LGBT people who served in the armed forces. And
call me alive.
a new song to celebrate the Lionesses and the Women's World Cup. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
You're going to be watching. Well, you're going to be watching the footy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you going to be watching the cricket? That's the question.
100%.
Of course, you were getting very nervous about it all last night, weren't you?
Yeah.
Well, it is, of course, a massive week for sports in the region for us, isn't it?
It certainly is. The Ashes are underway at Old Trafford, and tomorrow the Open Championship begins at the Royal Liverpool Golf Club in Hoylake on the Wirral.
Well, in a minute, we'll be hearing from Chris Hall, who's at the Open. But first, to your favourite bit, to the Ashes, where we can join David Chisnott. And David, there was a lot of talk ahead of this about what the weather was going to do. Has it behaved itself?
It certainly has, thankfully. You know, what a difference 24 hours makes. This time last night I needed a brolly. Now, well, I need the sun cream. It's been quite the day here at Old Trafford. You know, England arrived here in Manchester knowing that they needed to beat the Australians to have any chance of winning the Ashes. They trail 2-1 in the series with 2 tests to play. And, well, those chances are still very much alive thanks to a historic day for Stuart Broad. He joins an exclusive group of bowlers that include his teammate and local legend here, Jimmy Anderson, in reaching an incredible landmark of 600 test wickets. It has been quite the day.
Rain in Manchester? Not today. Old Trafford has been bathed in sunshine for the start of England and Australia's crucial 4th Ashes test.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Oi, oi, oi!
The sellout crowd of 22,500 on day one. Queues built early with both sets of supporters keen to make the most of the big occasion.
Go, 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 Aussie Rangers!
So the mighty morphing Power Rangers are here. Guys, how are you feeling?
Relatively hot, pretty tough view, but ready to have a good day and hopefully knock some pommy batsmen over today.
Whose idea?
Not mine. The brains trust after a few beers.
Johnny, how are you feeling ahead of today?
Oh, amazing. We're going to do so well. We're going to smash it.
Come on, take your mask off. Let's see who it really is. What's your real name?
Maria.
Maria, how are you? Tell us about the mask. Why do you love Johnny?
Oh, I've got his shirt. Hoping to get it signed today if I get to see him. So, yeah, love him.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Oi, oi, oi!
What kind of atmosphere are you expecting inside there today?
A lot of singing and a lot of comments about Australia. So.
You've worn the caps. You want to be noticed.
Yeah, that's true.
We're not shying away from it.
You'll be given as good as you get.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got the weather. You've sorted it, Daniel. You've done this.
Oh, well, I rang the man upstairs and he sorted it out for me. But no, we're really excited. People from all over the world, particularly people from Manchester, though, they love their Ashes history. And Jimmy Anderson's going to write the next chapter in Ashes history here in Manchester.
There's a lot of love for Jimmy at his home ground, including support from Everton and former Burnley defender James Tarkowski.
Hoping to see the lads bowl today. I know Jimmy's a big Burnley fan, so I'm always hoping to see him play, so I'm looking forward to it.
He's one of the world's greatest ever, so him rocking in, bowling fast from the Jimmy Anderson end with the fans, especially the temporary stand, he's going to be buzzing, isn't it? So I'm so excited. The next 4 days are going to be awesome.
You've got a very special job. Tell us what you're doing.
Those people who get the flags and stand on the sides, well, me and lots of my friends are doing it.
While the players walk out?
Yep. A little bit nervous and excited at the same time.
I think you're going to be great at this. Can we practice your flag waving? Can you show us your flag waving? Oh, look, you're going to be brilliant at this.
Yeah, incredible by Stuart Broad today, and more wickets have fallen since then. The Australians a few moments ago were on 293 for 7. But of course, this isn't the only place where you can see world-class sport in the Northwest over the next 4 days. Delighted to say that my colleague Chris Hall is over on the Wirral, where the world's best golfers are gathering on the eve of the Open Championship. Chris, over to you.
Yes, thanks, David. It's the first time in 6 years that the Open Championship has been back in the Northwest. It's the first time in 9 years that it's been staged here at Royal Liverpool Golf Club. And today the sun is out and the stars have been out too, led by the man who won the Open the last time it was here at Royal Liverpool Golf Club. The 2014 champion Rory McIlroy has been out on the course today for the final practice round. A chance for the fans to get up close to some of the 156 best golfers on the planet who've been honing their skills ahead of the 151st Open Championship, which gets underway in about 12 hours time. And what a moment that will be for Matthew Jordan from Hoylake. He's been a member here at Royal Liverpool Golf Club since he was 7 years of age. 20 years later he has qualified for the Open Championship on his home course, and today he's been getting a great reception from all the local fans here, and some free advice too from Southport's golfing superstar Tommy Fleetwood.
He was a great player. I actually played with him when he was like 16 around here, and I remember coming off and I was saying this kid's really, really good. It's a great opportunity. Tees off first, you never know, get a bit of momentum going early doors and see what you can do. But yeah, just for him, enjoy it, trust himself, and see what he can do.
Well, could Tommy's chances rest in the hands of another man from Southport? While not a household name, Phil Kenyon is regarded as one of the best golf coaches in the world. He specialises in putting, and he's already worked with 5 Open champions. So who does he believe has what it takes to lift the claret jug this week? The walls of his studio tell the story of Phil Kenyon's impact on golf. From Open champions to Olympic champions, the world's best players have him to thank.
Coaches get far too much credit but can also get far too much blame at the same time. I mean, a low point in my career would be being on the back page of newspaper where I was blamed for Lee Westwood's downfall in the Masters. The more recognised the player, the more sort of heat that goes with that. I remember when I worked with Rory McIlroy, some of the messages that you would get through social media or the opinion that people would force upon you. At the end of the day, it's the player that's hitting the shots, executing the putts. But it's just nice to be involved in a small way. If you look around the studio, you'll see a few sort of signed flags, and they're great mementos for me.
His big break came at the Royal Birkdale Open of 2008, where he was given the chance to work with Ryder Cup star Henrik Stenson, who'd been struggling with his putting. After a few sessions with Phil, Henrik finished 3rd. From the decade which followed, half of the Open champions have followed his methods, though not all as willingly as others.
People onboard information very differently. Some people can be quite passive, and other people, you have to dress it up that it's their idea. There's a good few like that. That's the challenge, I think, being able to adapt to the player.
So for us complete novices at golf, you've got a putting drill for me.
Now, the challenge is to be able to strike that ball through that gate on your intended line.
Of course, some people are beyond help. But Phil's tips will be invaluable for the 8 clients he'll work with in Open Week, including Stenson, Justin Rose, Keegan Bradley, Matt Fitzpatrick, Francesco Molinari, and the man who shares his hometown of Southport, Tommy Fleetwood.
I always believe that Tommy Fleetwood will win an Open Championship one day. I think he You know, he's grown up on links golf, you know, great ball striker. Tommy has improved his putting a lot in recent years, and it's a great game of small margins, isn't it? If you can be the best putter of the best ball strikers, then, you know, that's where you can make a difference.
While a student of psychology and sports science, Phil became a member of Royal Liverpool Golf Club. Now he's analysing every bump and slope of its greens, ready to guide some would-be winners. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that my putting needs a little bit of work. Tommy Fleetwood's doesn't know. Could this finally be the year that he wins an Open Championship? Tomorrow will definitely be Matthew Jordan's day. The local lad will start all of the action here tomorrow, bright and early, 6:35 a.m. Let's hope he sets his alarm clock for that. We'll let you know how he does, how Tommy Fleetwood does, how everyone does at the end of day one here at Royal Liverpool Golf Club. We'll be live here tomorrow.
Chris, thank you. I enjoyed Chris's putting, did you?
Well, my putting skills are shocking, so Chris is definitely in a great company.
He did very well. Well done, Christopher. And Tommy Fleetwood as well, Southport's finest. Come on, Tommy, we'll be rooting for you this week. And, of course, Mr Matthew Jordan as well. Good luck, everybody.
Exciting times. Staying with the sports news, and a statue of Wigan Rugby League legend Billy Boston has been unveiled in his hometown of Cardiff. It shows Billy alongside fellow players Clive Sullivan and Gus Risman. They were among the first top Welsh rugby union players to switch codes to league. Billy, who's 88, has already got a statue in Wigan, along with a stand at the DW Stadium named after him.
Former Manchester City player Benjamin Mendy has signed a 2-year deal with French club Lorient after being cleared of rape. Mendy left City last month after his contract expired. He'd not played for the side since 2021. He was cleared of raping a woman and attempting to rape another last Friday at Chester Crown Court.
Well, next to the Coronation Street legend who has been honoured as she prepares to mark a very special anniversary.
Yeah, Barbara Knox has, of course, played Rita for almost 60 years, but today she swapped the cobbles for the Tatton Flower Show.
And there to see her presented with her own rose was a very familiar face. Who do you think that might be, Vicky?
Oh, I don't really know, Gamal.
Andy Bonnet, I beg your pardon. Andy Bonnet was there for a very special Corrie reunion.
Get in the car! She's been on our screens for nearly 6 decades, and later this year Barbara Knox will be celebrating her 90th birthday. Today at Tatton Park, one of the country's most loved soap stars received a rare honour.
We're delighted to be able to present Barbara with a rose named on her behalf by Friars Roses called the Gracious Lady.
Barbara?
Yes.
Gracious Lady.
Oh, did you see the rose? Isn't that beautiful? I'll never live up to the name, of course, will I? I never thought I would have a rose named after me.
There's a bit of attention here for you today as well.
Come on, it's the street. It's world famous.
Next year, is it 60 years since your first appearance in Corrie? Plus, you've got a big birthday coming up.
I have. It's only 90, darling. I can't believe it. Truly, Andy, I do not believe that I am going to be 90 in September. And when people say to me, I'm going to retire, I always say, don't retire. Are you frightened of poison gas?
It was perhaps the on-screen pairing of Rita and Mavis that became one of the most memorable for Barbara's character. And today at the Flower Show, a reunion for 2 colleagues who became friends off-screen too. Thelma said her friend's vitality should be revered.
It has to be celebrated, and there are not many people who can do it and have done it. So it's big congratulations all round. We worked happily for 25 years in that cabin. Never had a crossword.
We weren't the only ones filming today. A documentary will celebrate Barbara's remarkable career later this year.
You know I don't do a lot of interviews or anything. And then to look back, oh my God, it's astonishing.
People have talked about legend and icon status and all the rest of it. I think we can quite confidently apply that to you. How do you feel when people talk about you like that?
Well, you can't be really. I always think I'm just lucky I've got a job. I've got a job I love. People are kind. People really are. And some of these words are bandied about almost anybody. Not many legends.
Well, I think in your case we can make an exception. Thank you very much for your time.
She looks amazing for 90, doesn't she?
They both look great.
Many congratulations, Barbara. Here's James with the weather.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello there, good evening. Sunny spells and showers today, but a real difference compared to the very hot weather down across the Mediterranean. That's just circulating its way around to the south of the jet stream. We are to the north of it, and because we've got the lows and more unsettled weather here, we're drawing in this cool air down pretty much from the Arctic Circle. That northwesterly is a pretty showery flow for us. We've certainly got more of those to come as we head towards the weekend. And as far as tonight goes, some of the showers from today will ease off. 1 or 2 will lurk around, but because we've got these clear skies and fairly light breezes, we'll end up with some mist patches developing in 1 or 2 spots. It's also going to be a bit chilly out in rural parts, single figures, so quite a fresh start to the day tomorrow. Towns and cities still holding on to some of that warmer air with lows of between 11 and 15. So Thursday set to be a rinse and repeat. We've got all that damp ground around that once the sun gets going on, it helps to promote these showers. Quite a rash of them across the whole of the patch, and it's going to be heavy in places. Not much of a breeze to push them through. There's a risk that some of these showers could bundle together to feel more like proper rain. That said, if you can stay dry in the sunshine, 19 Celsius won't feel too bad, but really it is a little bit on the cool side with that airflow coming down from the north and the west. And Friday is set to be rinse and repeat. Sunny spells and showers might ease off a little bit later on in the day because you can see what's lurking out towards the west of us. That is not 1 system but 2 set to bring us quite a lot of wet weather on Saturday. I'm afraid to say it's set to last into Sunday too. Have a good evening.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
So what would we call a rose named after us?
Pinky and Perky, probably.
Got to be done. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching.